This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Pia. Today is April 26, 2021. It is 7:10 p.m. and I'm calling the regularly scheduled Stratford WPCA meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of March 22nd, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
Laura Dancho, motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Dancho. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Bill O'Brien seconds.
Second by Councilman O'Brien. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call it for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 8-0. Next item on the agenda is a town engineer report. Mr. Casey, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. We'll jump to the action items. There are 4 change orders that are brought to you tonight for the pump station project. These have been discussed, especially the first one, for many months, but we finally got it to a point that was acceptable to us, and that is the removal of the replacement of the fuel tank that is powering the generator, fueling the generator. If you remember, we removed the underground tank that used to power it. And in order to bring it up to code now, the tank that was previously serving the generator was undersized to meet the current DEP requirements. So we are upgrading it to double the size of the tank capacity. And the cost for that is $43,038.16, and that's to replace upgrade the tank that was serving the generator. It's above ground tank associated with it. We've eliminated the underground tank, so that liability is gone from us. So this was the way we went with this fuel tank for the generator, and that's a rider's lane. Want me to run through them all, or?
Yeah, so because you're required to vote on each of these action items, John, for clarity?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we, actually, let's take them individually then, so that way we could have the votes logged. All right, so I'll entertain and actually before I entertain that motion, Ms. Paquette and Carol for the meeting minutes record, point of correction, I believe there's only 7 WPCA members on the call. I just looked at my screen again. I believe councilors Hardin and Poisson are also, it should be 7-0 for approval of minutes. Just wanted that to reflect in the record. Awesome. So the first item, action item A, subtext I. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
This is Laura Dancho, motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Dancho.
Second from Jim Connor.
Second from Mr. Connor. Thank you, sir. Any discussion on item I for the riders lane generator fuel tank upgrade? I know we've talked at length on this one a few times. Any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion. Call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Casey.
The next item is at Short Beach Pump Station. When the paint coatings were removed by sandblasting, it exposed some deteriorated concrete on the ceiling in the electrical room. And it's recommended to put on a cement coating rather than just try to put a new paint coat on to prolong the life of the concrete plank ceiling.
So Mr. Casey asking for item subtext 2, $14,962.50, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved
Motion
by Bill O'Brien.
Councilman O'Brien on the motion. Do I have a second?
Second by Jim Connor.
Second by Mr. Connor. Thank you, sir. Any discussion for this item? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Casey.
The next item is at Peck's Mill Pond Pump Station. The electrical service there was being discussed with the UI company, and the recommendation, it would be costly to upgrade the service to the needs that are not necessarily warranted. So what we're deciding here is to put a switch in that will decrease the electrical load at certain peak times when all three pumps are required to be running at the same time, which is very rare. And by shaving that peak electrical load, we don't have to upgrade the electrical service as much. And so in this change order to put in this shut-off switch would be $2,160.44. We'd be saving, quite a bit more money if we needed to upgrade the service. So this is recommended for economy and the most economical way to serve the station.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. So I'll entertain a motion to approve item 3 under action item A, Peck's Mill Pond electrical service for $2,160.44.
This is Laura Danshaw. Motion to approve item A, item 3 for $2,160.44.
Motion by Ms. Dancho. Do I have a second?
Bill Perillo, second.
I have a second by Mr. Perillo. Thank you. Any discussion? And John, just again, for the record, I know you, and thank you for working on this in the most economical way, but at the bottom line, you still obviously feel that this will fulfill our needs, even though we're upgrading the pump station to the 75 to 100 yard flood marker.
Yes, with this remedy, we are able to maintain full capacity during the high flows.
Okay, just want to clarify. Any other discussion for Mr. Casey on this? No? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Casey.
And the final change order for the pump station is to delete some exterior electrical receptacles that we determined were not needed by the WPC staff. And that is a savings of $3,789.33.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to accept item A4 for deleting of the receptacles at Plus and Benton for a saving of $3,789.33. Do we want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. This is Jim Connor.
Mr.
I'll
Connor?
second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Taveras. Any discussion? It's a good thing we're getting money back. It's a good thing. So thank you, Mr. Casey. Any other discussion on this one?
So just to finish the pump station report, the project's moving along on schedule. We're about 45% complete. And, we've had other cost-saving change order, as you know. So we're currently, haven't gotten into our contingency, and, we continue to try to keep the costs, below, really right now we're below the awarded contract. So we're in good shape with the budget.
Thank you, sir. And I know you've been staying on top of it, John, so we appreciate it. All right.
And
Seeing no other further discussion on this vote, we will call to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes
Aye.
aye. Okay. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passed at 7-0. Thank you, John. Next item, action item for your list.
The next item is a request to connect to the sewer system from a new development. This is at 211 Ferry Boulevard. And they sent out the site plan of the proposed development and the estimated sewer flows from that development. The project is within the TOD zone and is applied for under that zoning district, and has a commercial floor on the first level and then 45 one-bedroom unit apartments above that commercial level. This has been approved by the zoning. At this time, they're looking to get permission to connect to the town's sewer system. One caveat to note, the sewer that they would be connecting to would be that Houstonic River trunk sewer. It's 42 or 48 inch pipe that runs right, not only in front of their property, but it's actually partially on their property at this point, because years ago when it was installed, it was in the state right away, but the state abandoned a part of their road. So when they moved their street line, they actually, caused our sewer to be on the property. So the part of the application and zoning was to give us the sewer easement that would cover, the pipe that's currently in place, which is currently partially on their property. So that's part of one thing that we should probably make a, condition of approval would be that easement becomes, formalized on the land records. But besides that, we always ask, what the impact will be to the trunk sewer. That's the trunk sewer that runs all along the Houstonic River, all the way up, from Sikorsky all the way down, all the way up to Shelton, and all the way down Elm Street to the treatment plant. And as usual, the incremental flow rate, especially from, a series of one-bedroom apartments, isn't a great amount in its own, but we are always concerned about the cumulative effects of all of these developments being proposed, because as you know, when the system was sized, it wasn't planning on having a dense development that is contained within the transportation-oriented development district. So, I'll leave it to you to ask any questions or approve the project. The developer is anxious to get this approved. He's had zoning approval for a while, but he hasn't come to the WPCA yet.
Okay, so we'll get to discussion when it's appropriate in a second. I will entertain a motion for approval of action item B, sewer connection request, item 1211 Ferry Boulevard, to approve the connection to the WPCA, and per Mr. Casey, the town engineer's recommendation, John, also have in the final passage of the minutes the easement as well?
Yes.
Okay. I will entertain that motion.
This is Laura Dancho. I will make that motion as stated.
Thank you, Ms. Dancho. Do I have a second?
Second by Jim Connor.
Second by Mr. Connor. Thank you, sir. We'll have discussion on this. So, John, let me just open up with, as I always will for any multiple unit development. It's past zoning. That's good. Then I'm comfortable with that. Regarding the flow, have we had Time Bond? Hi, Amy. I see Amy on the call. Have we had Ty check this? And I know when we did our capacity study and I capacity study almost 2 years ago now, we built these models and hypotheticals in for growth along Ferry Boulevard. Was this included?
So this development was not specifically included, to my recollection. I don't think it was.
Okay.
But the TOD in general was. So the TOD impact was contemplated in the model for future flows.
Gotcha. Okay. And then regarding also, just as also a reminder to the rest of the WPCA, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, the 45 units times the multiple of the 3,500 connection charges will go into this revolving fund?
So yeah, the current procedure is that finance puts the sewer connection charges into the revolving fund along with the any assessments that are also levied at that time.
Excellent. So it's about 160 grand. So that's good. Any other discussion for Mr. Casey on this?
So this is Laura Danchout. I just have a question on the capacity, the maximum capacity, because I think that this is an area, like it's in the TOD, right? So we have a lot of different units that are gonna probably come forward, and there's another one on this agenda tonight. So what is the max flow for this Housatonic trunk sewer?
So we don't, you know, what our strategy is to evaluate each one on its own merits as we go. But you're right that we are plugging that into a model that, you know, over time we'll build and we'll see the impact of any, you know, one development. Each development is relatively small, but like, you know, when it all gets added together, that's when you see the impact. So, you know, I'm not sure what our policy should be as far as evaluating each individual one, but we need to be aware of the impact of all of them going in at some point.
So like on another level, if we take care of our own developments in Stratford, right? You said that this trunk extends all the way into Shelton. Would Shelton ever have a development that would ask to tap into this?
They would, and they have.
Yeah.
One on River Road that was before the board 2 or 3 years ago. Ultimately got conditionally approved by the WPCA, but I don't know that the agreement with the developer up in Shelton ever was finalized.
So
but
is that
yes, there will be developments in Shelton and anywhere up and down the line.
So, Mr. Casey, to Ms. Dancho's point, I'm thinking the same thing. And I know you and I have discussed this, but is this something I feel most comfortable with? Maybe every couple months, us just doing a re-update of the model flow as these new ones come in. Maybe it's even quarterly, if that can be done. Obviously, if we don't approve anything in a 3-month period, we know nothing's going to change, and maybe we don't do it and spend the money. But maybe at least on a quarterly basis, if we do add in a new opportunity, we just do a simple model update to keep us up to point.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially when we know there's 2 or 3 coming in line. We can gather that data and plug it in together.
Yep.
That makes sense.
I would think that we should make it a priority to take care of our own developments, right? Before we, like, I would hate to say yes to Shelton and then have to say no to one of our own developments because of the capacity of this one particular trunk. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and Laura, I think to that point, as long as we're staying up to date on it, at least on a quarterly basis, we have the most accurate information. And I do believe, Mr. Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, that River Road development might have been about 2.5 years ago, but I believe our board did approve it pending Shelton P&Z approval.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know we haven't heard anything since, but
I haven't heard anything, yeah.
So, okay. Any other discussion on this item?
Chairman Pia.
Yes, Caitlin, how are you? Go ahead.
Good, thank you. I was actually going to make the same request to have quarterly, essentially data available for the council so that we have, a record, so to speak, so we can measure what the flow impacts, whether it's Shelton or whether it's Stratford within the same line. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah, one of the pluses was that modeling that Amy and at Time Bond and were great about 2 years ago. And at that time, and John, I do remember we modeled the whole TOD as a whole. Nothing has been proposed really since. This is, I'd say, probably our first larger scale one since. But I think doing that and going forward on a quarterly basis will be good.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say quarterly because we'll use our best judgment as we know developments are coming so we don't want to waste time when we don't have anything, when we're inactive.
I agree.
But we'll look at it quarterly to see if we should do it.
That's fair. That's fair. Any other discussion? No? Okay, we'll call it for a vote then. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Casey, you have one more item?
Yeah, so this is a new sewer connection request, but in this case, there's no sewer available at the house. So they're requesting that the public sewer be extended up to their property, up to the street. So this is a dead end at Hilltop, and because of the grade, the sewer is not able to serve the dead end of the road. So the only sewer that's available is one that's on the adjacent property in an easement. So in order to extend the pipe to the end of Hilltop from that sewer, we would need to go on the private property and get an easement from the owner. I met with the owner of that adjacent property Friday and determined that the owner is okay with having a public sewer constructed on her property for this other neighbor. So the neighbor, in my package is their request to connect. They're requesting that the sewer be brought up to the house, to the street, so that they can connect to it. And they're waiving their right to have public hearing because they know that this would be an accessible project under the town charter for public improvement project. And that public hearing requirement, they would be willing to waive so that they could expedite the process of moving forward with the project. So we've done that before, I think two times, where the owners waived it because they were the only one that were going to be benefiting from the project, and they were the only one that would be assessed for the benefits. So, based on that, and based on the fact that the adjacent owner was, willing to allow the sewer to go on their property, we would feel confident that you could approve the project to move forward, and we'll start the process of designing the project.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve item C for the newer sewer extension request for 246 Hilltop Drive.
So moved by Bill O'Brien.
Motion by Mr. O'Brien. Do I have a second?
Laura Dancho, I'll second.
Ms. Dancho, thank you. We'll have discussion. So Mr. Casey, the only question I have is they're aware, as you stated in their letter, they are aware of the costs associated with it, and they're willing to pay that and be assessed that at applicable rates, correct?
Yes, and if you remember, again, the last time we did this was California Street, where we brought the sewer up from Barnum. And when the project went out to bid, the prices came in more than the owner was willing to pay. And then at that point, we just canceled it. So there was no, no costs and no assessment process. The project just got canceled. So, if the cost became too great during the course of the project, we could always cancel it at that time.
Okay.
There will be some costs potentially for some survey work here that we normally wouldn't encounter because of the steep topography and the easement that would be required. So before we incur those costs, we'd come to you maybe next month with some design and some requests for funding for not only the cost of survey and easement, but also the cost of construction would also need to be funded. And then, of course, it'll be reimbursed through the assessment process.
So John, let me just to that point, you mentioned the survey. I'm reading the letter from the homeowner. In the letter, it says, I understand that all costs associated with the design, easement, procurement, and construction of the project would be assessed to me. Wouldn't even the survey be assessed to them?
Yeah, all the costs get assessed to the owner. Of course, you can decide, when you do the assessment, how you want to handle the assessment, but normally all the costs would be assessed to the owner that benefits from the property.
Understood. Just want to make sure we're clear. Mr. Taveras. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I do, Mr. Casey. Is this a binding contract? Would a customer would have to sign something in writing so that it'll be a legal document?
Well, they've sent us a letter in writing and signed it. So, I would say that's pretty binding as far as them requesting the project and knowing that they're going to get assessed for it. Once the WPCA completes the project and makes the assessment, you have the legal authority to make that assessment. So there's no contract involved. It's an authority you have as the municipality.
Thank you. One last question. Now, the owner would have to have that line insured, and possibly any future owners that would say if the house was sold and another owner were to acquire it.
No, so in this case, because it's a public improvement project, it will be a town pipe. It'll be a pipe that the town will own and maintain for the use by the public. And there is this owner will benefit immediately because they can tie into it, but other people can also tie into it over time if needed.
Thank you, sir.
Any other discussion on this item? No? Okay, I don't hear any other, so we're going to call for a vote then. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 7-0. I believe you're good now, Mr. Casey. I'm looking at your action items.
Yep, there's no other items.
Excellent. And I know Mr. Casey did provide the rest of his report for everyone with the agenda. So unless there's any other questions for Mr. Casey, we'll move on. No? Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a report from the WPCA Plant Superintendent, Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde did also provide his report, and we will go to his action items. Mr. Hyde? Margot Carroll, I'm wondering if Mr. Hyde is on mute, because I did speak to him prior to the meeting. He was calling in, and I know there's a number of muted callers.
Yeah, all the callers are muted. *6, I believe, will unmute his own phone.
So Mr. Hyde, Tom, if you can hear me, if you're on the line, please unmute yourself with *6. Mr. Hyde?
If not, I can unmute everybody and he'll have to identify. Oh,
I think I got it that time.
yep.
Caller
You
one.
can hear me?
Hi, Tom.
Good evening. So for new business in January, the board approved $47,000 for replacement parts for the collector systems for the primary tanks. There's been, with COVID and so forth, there's been some material cost increases, with about a $3,700 increase that would bring the total cost up to $50,679. I request the board approve the increase so that I can move on with this project. Funds will come from the same account.
Okay. Request for Mr. Hyde for an increase of that item by $3,700. I'll entertain a motion.
Laura Dancha, motion to approve.
Ms. Dancho, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second by
Bill
Jim
O'Brien.
Connor.
I heard Mr. Connor first. There was a few in there. Any discussion on it? Any questions for Mr. Hyde on that? No? All right. Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Unless anybody else has any other questions for Mr. Hyde, his report was given to us as well. Tom, thank you very much. We appreciate your work.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too, sir. Next item on the agenda is fiscal year 2021-2022 budget discussion workshop. So what we're going to be doing tonight, counselors, is we're just going to be discussing the budget. There will not be a rate vote tonight. I know that was initially written on our initial schedule and timeline of everything. The reason for it, we have to have a public hearing, and we will be having the rate vote at another time, but we are still going to move forward with going through the WPCA budget and have any questions. So with that, Mr. Timniak, I don't know if I'm going to hand it over to you or or Renee first to go through the budget.
Mr. Chairman, it's Chris Timniak, CEO of the town here.
Yes, sir.
How are you? You all have the budget on page 59. It shows a slight increase from last year. The increase comes from workman's comp line, and there's another line which, excuse me, I'm actually in the middle of driving right now, and I should be home in a second. So it comes from a workman's comp line. Mr. Ng can talk about the new workers' comp rate we got this year in high propensity employees or employee situations which are going on at the particular plant. Also, Public Works Director Renee Sarah can talk about any operational stuff or manpower issues which you may have. Are there any specific questions for them? Or also, Assistant Finance Director Kim Casella is on the line as well. If there are any specific questions regarding finance or the revenue coming in to the WPCA budget this year.
Okay, so I'll first just start off with questions for Renee. Hi, Renee. The only question, two questions. How are you? The only questions I have is we're increasing capital outlay contingency. Can you just touch on that? And I'll give you that one first.
Just basically, there are, the plant is aging. We're having some pieces of equipment start to break down, and we're just anticipating making some necessary repairs. Larger pumps that have causing us some grief need to be.
Hold on 1 second, Renee. Chris, thank you, Chris. Go ahead, Renee.
So yeah, we're just anticipating that some of the equipment that's aging now is going to be needing repair replacement. So that's just kind of the foreseeable future. We've kind of been consistently seeing some things break down and needing repairs. We're just anticipating more, especially with the heavier usage with everybody home on COVID. It's getting used a lot more than it normally would. So that's all that is.
Okay, and then the only other last question for me, and I'll let you go. The sludge contract service. I know this is something we looked at a few years ago about maybe investing in a presser to try to decrease that item. Have we? What are your thoughts on that this year?
We tested that theory out, and we didn't realize the savings we kind of thought we would, so it wasn't worth the investment.
Okay.
So we did some further research, and we found it wasn't worth it.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Timniak here. If I can elaborate on the sludge, we're actually in the process of evaluating evaluating a new way to dispose of the sludge. We are hoping that a new business coming to the town of Stratford could potentially take it. So that's in the works, but there's a couple long-term goals we're evaluating, whether it's a fuel cell or another way to dispose it. Currently, we're driving the sludge to Naugatuck, and we're looking to make that a shorter, cheaper run.
Understood. Thank you. I'll open it up to the WPCA. Any questions for Mr. Timniak, Ms. Sarah, or Kim? No? Okay, I don't hear anybody or see anybody. Numbers look good, revenues there, Renee. We appreciate it. And again, we're not voting on the rate tonight, so everyone's clear. This is purely just an opportunity for a budget workout for the WPCA alone. All right, so if I don't have any other questions, That'll be perfect. Renee, thank you as always. Mr.
Great,
Tinney,
thank you so much.
And Kim, thank you for being on. Next item, there's no new business or other business. And that's all. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Laura Dancho, motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Danto. Do I have a second?
Second, Bill O'Brien.
Mr. O'Brien. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? No opposed. Motion passes 7-0. Everyone have a great evening. Thank you for your time.